Anyway, hi everybody. It looks like we're still preparing. I know that we are recording at this point. This is new for us today in the Healthy, Happy Living space to record on Zoom and use the function to go live on Facebook all at the same time. It's a beautiful thing. Technology is amazing, right? Okay, can I hear you? Kyla.
Yes.
There we are. Okay, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can see each other. Hello. All right, well, let's just go ahead and open this on up. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Hingstenberg, and I am here with Healthy, Happy Living, and this is my Spotlight series. And I have met some amazing people as I have networked in and around my city and my area over the last 2 years. And I just really felt like it was not fair of me to, here, let me see if I can change this view. There we go. It wasn't really fair of me to know these people and not share it with my network, share it with people that may need whatever assistance that we can get from each other. So that's the kind of the genesis of the series and why I started interviewing people. And I am just so blessed today to be interviewing Kyla, who has become a really good friend of mine. And I am just, I was looking through her website the other day when I was creating the graphic for this, and I was like, I think she might be able to help me. So just the energy that she brings, the love, the attention, the focus that she brings to her clients is something that I feel like is very important to share. So without further ado, Kyla Martin is here with us today. And Kyla, why don't you start by sharing a little bit about what you do, just as coach. We don't want to get into too much detail, but just a little bit about what you do.
Yes. So thank you so much for having me. Can we just talk about new friends and how fun new friends are, especially during a pandemic?
Yeah, extremely fun. They're needed.
So fun. Yes, yes. So I am a career coach, and specifically I help women, primarily work with women, leave corporate America to create the life and career they want. And then once they leave, then I have all these entrepreneurs that I continue to coach. And I do a lot of work on mindset. I believe that our thoughts actually create our actions and outcomes. And so I do a lot of work to help my clients really see their own brain and see what might be holding them back. And then we work together to create a plan to work through that.
Wonderful. That is really wonderful. And just so you know, I'm working on some more IT behind the scenes here because it looks like even though I thought we were going live, we really weren't. So now we're starting to go live. Lots of buttons to be pushed, you guys. Lots of buttons to be pushed. Okay, so this is not a question. This is kind of, spur of the moment question here. This was not on my list, my little skeleton that I sent you, but who is your favorite, who's your favorite client to work with?
Yes. It is a woman who, and again, I work with a few men, but primarily women. It is a woman who can imagine a different life, but is not living it yet. So my clients are successful. They've had success in other aspects of their life, but they're dreaming about a life that is a different version of what they currently have. And oftentimes fear of failure, fear of replacing financial resources holds them back. And so my favorite client is someone who has a passion for something else and they consider it a hobby or just something they do, for fun, helping them really turn that into their career purpose, and potentially their own business, which most of my clients end up doing.
I love that. I love that so much because, gosh, you're speaking to a person who has done that. I have made that leap, and it is scary. It is something that it requires a lot of chutzpah.
And management, right? There's just so much going on in your brain that I was watching this documentary on Netflix the other day, Coronavirus Explained, and they were talking about what's happening right now with our brains in a pandemic. And basically everyone's walking around in lower brain fight or flight, right? So the cortisol level is through the roof. We're making decisions with the least amount of oxygen, the lowest part of our brain. And so, and that's what happens for humans. We're biologically driven to survive. And so we go into fight or flight when there's something like this happening. And so I've had so many clients recently that have been furloughed or been laid off, or simply this has been a dream they've had, and this pandemic has kind of finally helped them to realize that what they're really most afraid of is not living the career and life that they dreamed about, right? And if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it, right? So I think that yes, it does require a lot of courage, and the way that we create courage is by identifying what thoughts we're thinking, and then deciding if those thoughts are serving us, if those thoughts are even true. Half the time they're not even true, right? We go to worst case scenario because our brain is trying to be efficient. It's trying to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So if you've ever heard of the motivational triad, that's how we're wired to survive. But most of that, there's generally not something chasing us, right?
Right.
But a pandemic does kind of kick in those fight or flight thoughts, and then again we kind of become paralyzed sometimes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that's fascinating, especially in this time. So okay, so let me ask you some personal questions. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in hill country of Texas, outside of San Antonio, in a little town called Bernie.
I have seen Bernie.
Yes.
I think I know somebody else who lived in Bernie, now that I think about it. That's crazy. Wow. Isn't Bernie spelled differently?
Yes, like German. So it's Boerne. Apparently in German, the first vowel is silent.
Got it. I mean, Schnitz is Hingstenberg. I don't have, very few vowels. So, well, cool. And where do you live now?
I live in far north Plano, almost to Frisco. So we're in the Frisco School District.
Got it. So North Dallas area. Okay, cool. And then what do you believe is one of your superpowers?
Yes, my superpower is being able to connect the dots between disparate things. So
fair and what?
Disparate things. So things that don't seem like they go together, I can see the connection. And this is why it's so extraordinary to be a career coach, because I will often ask my clients, we do a lot of pre-work questions to identify what their zone of genius is, I call it. And stolen from a book, it's not my term, but it's sort of the highest. Right? Yes, The Big Leap. Yes. Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, such a good book. And so if we are functioning in our zone of genius, we're literally in this space, that beautiful nirvana that I believe we were meant to be in. We each, I believe, have a purpose. And I believe when you're in your zone of genius, you're functioning in that purpose. And so what I love is being able to, a client will say, well, I love to do this, and I have this strength, and I do this for fun, and my friends ask me for help with this, and I can see how it all relates, and I can see how we can weave it together to create a career, a business, whatever they want to go after.
That is fantastic. And connecting those dots and having somebody on the outside to connect them for you, I think is so very important, because you can get all caught up in your own thoughts and your own wishes and your own, needs to do, as opposed to really thinking about that zone of genius and really what it is that your purpose is. I love that.
The best way to describe lower brain versus higher brain is if I ask a girlfriend for advice, it's always so clear to her what I should do, but I can't see it for myself. And the reason is because she's in higher brain and I'm in lower brain.
So I also have this thing that I use with some of either my friends' kids, or even some kids maybe that I've coached in the past on their musical theater journey or whatever. And I call it I coined the phrase, the cool aunt syndrome. where, you know, when mom comes in and says, hey, this is what you should be doing, or this is what, you know, they have a conversation or whatever, and the kid's like, ugh, mom. But the cool aunt comes in and says, hey, this is what I think you need to do. You better believe that kid's going to listen to the cool aunt, right? So it's just a, you know, just something that I thought of, you know.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
I want to help all the moms I can.
Yes.
So what have you found? I mean, you clearly already kind of mentioned this earlier about, you know, this special time in our lives being quarantined and with coronavirus and everything that's here. What is something that you have found that you really love about this time?
Yeah, so for me, I believe we're, you know, some people are calling this a great pause. And I believe that we are being given space to really see what's important. And again, for me, when I think back to 9/11, which is the, you know, sort of the most traumatic thing I can think of in recent years, what I was most afraid of was that I wasn't living the life I wanted. I mean, that at its core, that's really, I was desperate to get back to this job and wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get laid off. And in fact, it wasn't even the right job for me. It was something I was really good at, but not my zone of genius. And so I think that there's a lot of people right now taking stock, considering, you know, what they really want to do. People have more sort of space in their brain. Some people, not everyone. God bless all the moms. I keep, you know, sending up special love for the moms.
Thank you.
But, you know, there, even if you used to have to commute and you don't commute anymore, right? Even if you used to, I've been doing some of your classes on Zoom. So even driving to a studio, right? I mean, so some of us have some more space. You're not maybe sitting at a restaurant, you're just getting takeout and coming back home. So I think that the space allows our brain to, you know, if we create an environment for it to kind of ponder what's next. And so that's what I love about this time. And I have been doing a ton of, you know, I call it deep thinking. So it's actually, you know, giving your brain space to actually think about something deeply. And in our society, we're just, that's a luxury that we don't necessarily honor and create space for. And I think, again, this has forced some of that on us as a society. And I think that's an amazing thing. The other thing I always think about is, you know, so many of our challenges resulted in something extraordinary in humanity, you know, whether it was the Age of Enlightenment or the Roaring Twenties, that always came after a time of hardship. And so I'm so excited to see so many things that we, you know, what seemed temporary will become permanent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had clients begging a year ago to work for a company who, you know, would let them work remotely. And that's going to be the new normal for a lot of companies, right? And so it gives them, you know, opportunities that maybe didn't exist a year ago to change careers and be able to stay in the same city, or, you know, be able to have more freedom and flexibility, which all of my clients want more freedom and flexibility.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I agree. This time to pause and time to with kids too, just taking a break and allowing us to just kind of allow them to sit back maybe into activities that they weren't doing before if they were overscheduled or if they had too much going, whatever, the fact that they can just kind of breathe. Now, that does not mean that they're not on the screens all the time, but that's for another day. So
we're human beings. We're not human doings, right? And so sort of, I call it be time, BE, right? To actually, again, contemplate some things, which we just generally don't give ourselves that space and that, you know, that luxury.
Right.
Really luxury, so.
I think that human beings, I love that. I mean, I know that my husband and I have even had some amazing conversations that would have never been able to happen because the only time that we had when we were together was very minimal. Yeah. And so with him not having to go into the office, it makes for really interesting conversation sometimes.
I've never felt closer to my husband.
Right. We're blessed for that too, because I know that not everybody gets that same situation. That's another tangent that we won't go down. Okay, so what is one of your just all-time favorite accomplishments in your career now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because when I used to get asked that question when I worked in corporate America, I spent most of my career as an executive speechwriter. And so I wrote speeches for leaders in some of the leading industries. And it was always so extraordinary to be able to give voice to someone. But what I've realized is that's exactly what I still do. It's just in a different way. It's through individuals. It's, again, primarily women who have a dream for their life, but need the steps and the mindset work and to understand what's actually been happening in their brain to go get it. And so it is an unbelievable privilege to be able to watch someone become who they were supposed to be, is the way that I describe it. And I look back when I was a manager in corporate America and I managed teams, that was my greatest accomplishment, which I often sort of got in trouble for, right? Kyla, stop helping people leave the company. And so I tell my clients, sometimes what you get in trouble for is what you're supposed to be doing. I have a client right now who's a project manager, and she says she gets in trouble for asking a lot of questions. That's what makes a great project manager. She's just not in the right company that values that, right? There's companies that require that. And so we're working on a transition for her, into a better cultural fit. But so watching someone become who they're supposed to be, and I've, again, had the privilege of when I used to manage people and then now doing this with individuals I can't even believe it's a job.
That's a blessing. That is certainly a blessing. That's wonderful. Okay, well then what I know that you've told us a little bit about this, but what really is it that causes you to really strive to be the best? Was there something that happened? Was there an event that caused you to kind of get to this space to really? Yeah. Okay, go.
Absolutely. So I really knew I was supposed to be a coach 15 years ago, but I was too scared to do it. I didn't understand what the path was. I didn't know how to place my income. I thought I had to go back to school full time, and I just couldn't figure out all the pieces. And so about 7 years ago, my husband, and he was just my boyfriend at the time, we went to a conference, and you were supposed to leave the weekend with what you want to be when you grow up, what you want to do with your life. You were supposed to have a mission statement for your life. And it used a combination of strengths and spiritual gifts and all of these things to and it kind of was a funnel. So they started with all this information. By the end of the weekend, all of a sudden you had this sentence that came from all this information that you were, starting to get tighter and tighter into this funnel. And it was so crystal clear what I was supposed to be doing that I couldn't unsee it and I couldn't ignore it anymore. And that was the moment that I created a work back plan. So sort of Stephen Covey, start with the end, right? And then our higher brain stays turned on, by the way. So your lower brain is like, you can't do that. It's completely turned off. So I always have my clients work backwards on their plan. So I created a work back plan for the day I was going to quit my corporate job and started putting things in place and doing it on the side. And that's part of what I help teach my clients is you don't have to quit your job tomorrow. We can create a transition plan. We can create safety for your brain, which your brain loves safety.
Absolutely.
And we can do this in a way that you take some small steps and, and kind of even try out this area in some small ways, to see is what I imagined what this really is, right? Because some of this we have to experience to actually understand. And so once I found this for myself and began moving into this, and figured out the tools to actually understand my brain and change my brain, then I literally knew this was what I had to do with my life. I had to teach others how to do the same thing. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. I love that, those kind of those aha moments or, those spaces where we have some sort of, experience that happens in our lives that cause us to examine things and go in a different direction. It's amazing. Yeah. I love that. Okay. So can you tell us or a or two success stories with
Yes.
people that you've helped?
Yes, yes. So two of my favorite, and I think they represent, the the commonality of what I do, and then also creating an individual approach for my clients, because there's definitely, everyone kind of has a different path. And so the path I take with one client, will use a lot of the same tools, but their experience is going to be different, because everyone is different. So one of my clients used to work in sales. She was very successful in sales. She just kept getting promoted and moved up, but she was not happy in her role. And so we started talking about, what do you really want to do with your life? And, again, started doing some career inventories and strengths assessments. And then a lot of the questions that I ask, and I have a sort of a pre-coaching session set of questions that I use to kind of get to what are the whispers, I call them, that are starting to show up. Because if you look at my life, all the whispers were there all along, even from the time I was young. And so we start to really see what the whispers are telling us, and that helps us create the picture of where we're going. And what she really wanted to do was be an interior designer and do refurbishments and remodeling and things like that. And so we started working on a plan to, transition and to slowly create, her materials and her website. I also identified someone she could mentor with so that she could kind of walk alongside someone. And now she has a full-time business, freedom and flexibility. She was a mom with two small kids, and she was working 80 hours a week in her corporate job, and now she's working less, making more. And so she's such a great example. And for her, it was identifying, but it was really the mindset work. That is what she would say really helped her identify. A lot of my clients, and I definitely had them too, have limiting beliefs, right? So maybe you had a parent or a teacher tell you entrepreneurs always struggle, or this career profession doesn't make money, or whatever. And that often is really what holds us back. Another client who, she's such a great story, because it took two iterations to get to her zone of genius. And I admire so much her tenacity in just continuing the process, because she was someone who worked in communication. She was a writer, but she really wanted to do something that ignited change in the world through her writing, particularly focused on young girls. And so she had dabbled a little bit in the film world. And so for a while, she became a documentary filmmaker and, ignited change through that medium. But what she really realized was that she was born to be a writer and to be a communicator and help people really understand how to communicate and affect change in their family, in the world, in the people around them. And so her first iteration wasn't what she eventually moved into, but she continued the work, and we continued the uncovering, and we continued the mindset and challenging, again, the beliefs. And so now she has a business that is sort of, take two. And that is truly her zone of genius. But it took some time to, again, this wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, and I didn't really think about this aspect. And those are some of the things that we want to just go in eyes wide open, right, and identify. Because sometimes what we dream, when it comes to the practicality of it, that's not exactly what I meant, right? I really imagined it more, looking like this. And so we have to sometimes continue to evolve that. But, she's another person. She's a mom, a lot of freedom and flexibility. In fact, she's spending the whole summer at her parents' house because she can work from anywhere. And, she is someone who had a big gap between her natural state and her acquired state. And I see this a lot with my clients. So they're really good at something, but it takes a lot of effort and energy. So by the end of the day, their cup is very empty, right? Whereas if we stay in our zone of genius, it feels easy. We can't believe it's a job. We would do it for free. That is your zone of genius. And you would be doing it anyway. I would be researching psychology articles and understanding the brain, regardless of whether I was a coach. That's what I used to do in my corporate life for fun.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So really finding those things that you would do.
Yes.
And monetizing those.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Start trading your time for, excuse me, instead of trading your time for money, you start trading your value for money. Because so much of corporate America is set up based on the Industrial Revolution, and machines worked 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and so did people. And we've never really evolved from that.
If not anything, we've gotten worse.
Exactly.
Where it's more than 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Exactly. And so many
expectations out there.
I'm changing careers, I've got to go back and take an entry-level job. No.
Yeah.
No, we're going to create a narration for your story that connects all the things that you've already done, because that's how you arrived here, and that's the value you bring, is all those perspectives. Right. And that's how we're going to transition you into the next thing, is by, again, creating a story that connects all of the resources and the skills and the capabilities and the strengths that you have to the next place you're going.
That's so fantastic and so needed. So many people need that guidance. They just do. Okay, well, what about, and I don't like to, I say this in every interview, and so I probably should change the question, but well, a failure, something that didn't quite work the right way, or didn't quite work the way that you thought it would, but you learned from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, particularly for women, we use a lot of self-talk that is not helpful. And so I've actually removed failure from my vocabulary. And whenever I feel the word coming up, it's always change it to learning, right? Because I didn't know X, so I couldn't have done anything differently, right?
Sure.
But I think for me, the greatest learning is when I've had a couple of stop starts with my business. So it's definitely not been smooth sailing. And I can tell you that the differentiator between this business wasn't really working and now it is understanding my brain and training my brain to focus on what are the thoughts I'm thinking, because that actually creates the outcome. We think it's our actions or we think it's our feelings, but there's always a thought that precedes the feeling and the action. And so when you can begin to identify what the thought is, and then again, decide, is it helpful? Is it true? Is it serving me? Then that is what is the difference. And so with my clients, they'll say, well, I want a different job, or I want to make more money, or I want to, turn my hobby into a business. And how do I do that? Okay, I can give you some of the how, but if we don't retrain your brain and help you understand your brain and empower you to be able to manage your brain, the how is really the easy part. It's the mindset that is going to make all the difference. And that's really what separates success. I don't think we talk about it enough. I believe that the brain is the next massive evolution we're going to go through as a society. We barely understand it, but what we do understand can be so powerful. We can create new habit pathways, right? Neural pathways, they're called. And so literally you can change a habit, something that's not serving you, to something that does. And that can be creating a business or changing careers. Right. And so that's, again, the majority of the time I spend with my clients is going to be on understanding, managing, hacking your brain versus the how, the what do I need to do? What actions do I need to take? No. That's how you created the life you have. We're creating something new. So we've got to go back to the beginning, which is.
Well, and I tell you, I resonate very much with that, because I think that for some of us, we are doers because that's what we learned. And so the natural thing to do is to say, well, what do I need to do to get to that space? What do I need? What are the actions that I need to take to get there? Because this isn't part of it.
Right. And so what I work with my clients, instead of to-do lists or action plans, we create belief plans.
Ooh.
So if you had X, whatever X is, whatever your goal is, what would you need to believe?
What would you need to believe in order to get there?
Believe. And that, because when you figure out what you need to believe, you will naturally take the actions you need to.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But if you're focused on the actions, then your brain has kind of gone on autopilot, and it's just reusing old thoughts that got you, again, the life that you have. So we need to identify what those thoughts are and figure out what we need to change to create a different outcome. And
Ooh.
so plans are critical.
Speaking my language. I love it. I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay, well then I mean, I know you and I could probably, again, we talked about this before our interview, that we could talk for hours.
Yes.
But how would people find you if they want to utilize your services?
Yeah, thank you so much. So my website is kylamartinconsulting.com. So Kyla Martin, the usual, consulting.com. And on that website, I have some free resources. I have a free download to help you kind of start seeing things a little bit differently, imagining, things a little bit differently, starting to tell your brain, we're going to kind of do something else. And then there's also a place you can sign up for my email list. And I do a weekly email with a lesson, a video, and then I also, on a regular basis, do free webinars. And so you can sign up and watch those as well. And then I'm on all the social channels except for Twitter. You can find all my social channels on my website as well. There's links.
That's fantastic. Do you do any, just curiosity wise, do you do any group work, or do you like to work one-on-one?
Yeah, so I have two offerings. I have individual coaching, and then I also have an online course. And in that online course, we have a Facebook community, which is a version of group coaching. And so that is what I found with the online course is it gives you another way to apply, and it also creates accountability and community. And so that is another way that you can really take this learning to a deeper place. I had clients who coached with me individually, and then the same clients did the course, and they said that it sped up, their application dramatically, which was, that's the experience I've had with online courses that are in combination with community, with individual coaching, group coaching. And so that's why I wanted to create that. So yes, we can do individual coaching, but the course is, critical. Sorry.
Okay, so my internet looks like it's unstable over here. Okay. You said that when people do the group coaching, they find that their growth speeds up?
The online course. The online course, it speeds up because there's homework, there's application that they're doing that builds everything, builds one module builds to the next. And so it again it's really the way our brains work, right? To learn, apply. And so the course has really taken that to a whole other level.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I will be looking. I just personally love the posts that you do just on Facebook, just information that you're sharing. I think it's such a value to add to people's lives. So thank you for doing that. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time today and for, being with me here today and sharing what you do. We have a conversation to have. And I just really, really value your time and your energy and what you have chosen to do with your life. I think it's fantastic. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Right back at you, my dear friends.
Well, thank you everybody on Facebook for watching. I'm going to go ahead and shut this sucker down. And as I have done with all of my other interviews as well, it will be downloaded onto the YouTube channel, Healthy Happy Living with Stephanie. And you can find all of the playbacks there. And hopefully I did this right on Facebook and you're watching it live here too. Who knows? Technology. We live and we learn. Anyway, thank you guys. Okay. All right, sister. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording. Hold on.